This is the METS POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
For the first time this season, the New York Mets have lost 3 games in a row. Their offense continues to be lifeless. They get shut out for the 3rd time this season, and they fall to the Boston Red Sox by a final score of 2-0. Welcome in to the Mets Postcast here on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. I'm your Postcast host here with you, Chris Schubert, after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. And the last couple of nights have not been a good time for all of us here on the Mets Postcast. Another brutal loss for the New York Mets, and we continue to be searching for answers for this team offensively. Let's not waste any time. You know what we're talking about. We'll just play the graphic, and then we'll get into it.
This is what you'll be talking about.
If you see me consulting the screen here to the left, it's because I'm attempting to have as much of the data as I can to attempt to describe what we are seeing from this team on a regular basis. I wonder if stats will do this justice, how poorly this team is playing offensively right now. 10 runs in their last 7 games. 3 in a row losses for the first time this season. They were 0 for 7 tonight with runners in scoring position. They left 7 guys on base. In the last 6 games, they are hitting 114, a 5 for 44 clip with runners in scoring position. They have left 43 men on base in that time frame, and they've gone 6 games without a home run. That hasn't happened since 2015. Shout out to a couple of the Mets beat writers providing those statistics, Michael Barron and Lauren Albanese, with a couple of those figures for us. This is bad. It's ugly. It's unwatchable at times. It's frustrating. You want to rip your hair out watching this team try to put together at bats right now. And David in the chat brings up a really good point right now. It just feels like these are automatic outs. It feels like every single spot in the lineup right now is an automatic out. There's not the battling to work a decent count and get on base and start a rally. It just feels like everything that can go wrong is going wrong for this baseball team right now. And honestly, tonight felt like a gift. It felt like the Boston Red Sox and the umpires tried to hand the New York Mets a gift. Tried to hand them the, hey, we know you're struggling right now. We know things aren't going your way. Here's your ticket so that you don't lose your 3rd game in a row. Here's your chance to get things back on track, to make everybody forget about what you've been talking about the last couple of days with hustle and your poor offense. We're going to gift you an opportunity. It's exactly what the Mets were given tonight in the 3rd inning when Walker Buehler got ejected. Now, did he say a few choice words to the umpire? Did he certainly not help his case? Yes. I'm not sure you throw Walker Buehler out of this game, but that's exactly what happened. Lindor gets on base with a hit by pitch that Buehler takes a little bit of exception to, thinks that Lindor didn't really get out of the way, kind of stuck that elbow in there. So Lindor's on first base. He steals second base on a pitch that is the most obvious strike of all time. I don't think you could have placed it in a better spot. The umpire calls it a ball. Lindor ends up on second with the stolen base. And then Walker Buehler proceeds to go to the home plate umpire. I believe the home plate umpire tonight was Mike Estabrook, and gave him a few choice words that I can't repeat here on the postcast. He got ejected, that being Walker Buehler. Alex Cora goes out there. He has a few choice words for the umpire. He also gets thrown out of this game. You were given a gift. The starting pitcher of the Boston Red Sox, the starting pitcher removed from the game after 3 innings, not even through 3 innings. A bullpen that they used pretty heavily the night before. A bullpen that you should have been able to tax tonight, win this game, score a bunch of runs, and then set yourself up well for tomorrow. And the Mets did none of that. They were given an opportunity, and they didn't even sniff a chance of scoring runs. And when the 2 home runs get hit, just to show you where this team is right now, I can guarantee you, most of you saw those 2 home runs tonight, and you knew the game was over. You knew with the quality of at-bats that we were seeing, with just the ineptitude of this offense. And these are talented baseball players. I expect them at some point to get out of this funk and to start scoring runs, and they'll do so in bunches. They are not going to be this lifeless for the rest of the season, but It feels like I have been on this program, the guy who tries to keep a steady head, who tries to keep things okay. There's a lot of games left to be played. There were some good things tonight. I try to be the positive, upbeat person. I can't be positive and upbeat about what we saw tonight. It's the first time all season they've lost 3 games in a row. Their offense is completely lifeless. And I see some people talking about Eric Chavez, and I saw some people on Twitter talking about it. And you can do that. You can call for that. We can think that that might be a good idea, but you better be sure that that's going to work. You better be sure that that's going to turn things around, because you can only do that once. You can only make that type of change once. We can talk about making lineup changes, moving guys around in the order, but you can't really go around doing that a whole bunch, because then you're going to throw everybody who's not even in rhythm as it is further out of rhythm. Remember last year, the Mets were struggling offensively at the beginning of the season for Carlos Mendoza. And what did he do? He moved Francisco Lindor to the leadoff spot, and that kind of sparked everything. I don't really know what you can do right now to spark this offense. Lindor's hitting in the 1 spot. Are you going to demote Soto from the 2-hole? That doesn't feel wise. That doesn't feel like that's going to be a spark. There's nobody right now. Ask yourself this question. Is there anybody in the lineup that you think should be promoted up in the order to try to spark this team? McNeil's had some decent at-bats, but is that enough to warrant him moving up into one of your top 4 spots? And so there are things that this team can do. They can make a change with their hitting coach. They can make a change with their lineup construction. These are tools that they have in their arsenal. It's just once you use them, you're kind of out of options. And right now, I think they're going to take the approach of just taking a wait and see approach. But I don't know how much longer we want to wait. And I can tell you, we don't want to see this a whole lot more going forward. Just a team right now that is totally out of whack. And maybe I did it justice with all the stats. Did I miss anything? Oh, yes. 13 groundouts of the 27 outs that they made. Just non-competitive at bats, not working the count, not forcing these pitchers to throw all of their arsenal. They're not fouling off pitches. They're not battling. Yeah, okay, there was some hard hit balls that ended up being outs tonight. Are we really going to sit up here and say the Mets were unlucky in this game tonight? Are we going to sit up here and say, darn, this one didn't go the Mets' way, but they hit the ball really hard? No. Did they have a couple of outs that got hit really hard? Sure. But guess what? A good baseball team has a whole lot more of those outcomes in the game, and some of them fall. 13 of their 27 outs were on the ground tonight. Those are non-competitive at-bats. That's not hitting the ball hard. And I know Boston plays a pretty good defense behind them, but it just feels like this team all across the board. I know the last couple of days have been directly focused on Juan Soto, but this is everybody right now. This is everybody on this team is making it difficult. Pete Alonso, that great April, not having a great May. Francisco Lindor, for the first time since being in a Mets uniform, a hot start to the season, he's cooled off a little bit. We know Soto struggles. We know Vientos is struggling. Brett Beatty came up, had that power surge. He's gone quiet once again. Alvarez had a couple of nice hits last night, right back to having some tough at-bats. It is just everybody right now is unable to contribute. I mean, we could talk about it. We could talk about how in the second inning they had first and second, 1 out, didn't get the run in. The third inning, they got first and second, 1 out after Lindor stole second. They walked Soto, ground out by Alonso for a ground out, and then Nimmo flies out to deep center. A leadoff double, in the fourth. Vientos, a good hustle play. Hustle has been a big topic over the last couple of days. Vientos, a nice hustle double, gets in there ahead of the tag. A leadoff double for the New York Mets. Here we go. Here's where they're going to get something going. They move them over with a ground out. They get nothing. They can't get a ball deep enough to just get a run on the board. And you had a play, and I even wrote this down at one point. Brandon Nimmo makes a great play in, the second inning to double off the runner. Makes a great play, nabs the runner at home to keep Boston off the board. And I wrote down, this is the play we are going to look back on in this game as the spark if this team's able to do something offensively. Now it's just going to be lost as a footnote. A great defensive play. Fundamentals have not been too kind to the New York Mets over the last couple of days. They got a great fundamental play. Brandon Nimmo, the hardest outfield assist he has ever thrown in his life, miles per hour. He threw the ball nearly 92 miles per hour from left field. An insane throw to snag the runner at home plate. They do nothing with the opportunity. That led right in that led right into Walker Buehler getting thrown out of the game. And the Mets just didn't use that as a spark. They didn't use it as a whole lot of anything. We got to talk about Clay Holmes. We'll talk about your thoughts. I can see a bunch of you in here talking about this Mets offense. We will get to it all. Clay Holmes, your thoughts on the Mets offense and where we go from here, because the Mets are going to try to avoid getting swept tomorrow. And they're sending a guy to the mound who hasn't really been doing all that well as of late. So we'll get to all of that here on the other side. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all of my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, packages showing up at your door all the time, it is easy to lose track. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money, it isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. You stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of trying to juggle multiple apps and compare accounts and all of that nonsense, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals all in one place. Perhaps you want to manage money with a partner, smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page, and you remove the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at the checkout at monarchmoney.com. You're going to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Back here with you, the Mets Postcast, Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. I'll tell you, on nights like tonight, where the Mets struggle, 3 losses in a row, offense is lifeless, I appreciate all of you wanting to hang out and vent your frustrations about the New York Mets. It's definitely easier to just turn off the TV and just move on with your evening. We appreciate you being here, even after a tough one like tonight. We'll get into Clay Holmes and his home run issues, but I obviously want to hear from you here on the Mets Postcast. Max says Soto isn't even in the issue. I think his struggles are masking the other issues that this team has. Listen, Juan Soto is struggling. Juan Soto is a part of this mess. Is it all Juan Soto? Is it all his lack of hustle? Is it all what we saw take place at Yankee Stadium? No. This entire team right now is struggling. And so I think lumping it all on one person is a little unfair. He is the highest paid player in the sport of baseball. He's the highest paid player on the Mets. So obviously he's going to get a little more scrutiny. But again, this goes well beyond Juan Soto. This team overall tonight, 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. None of those at-bats were taken by Juan Soto. Everybody else had those at-bats tonight. Nimmo 0 for 1, McNeil 0 for 1, Alonso 0 for 1, Alvarez and Beatty both go 0 for 2. So it is not just Juan Soto. I can go through each member of these of this lineup and tell you something that they're doing wrong. We can talk about every single person right now struggling at the dish. They're not hitting home runs. They're not hitting with runners in scoring position. They are just a incomplete offense right now. And listen, they are not going to do this for all 162 or however many games we have remaining on the calendar. Tonight was game 49. We are going to have an offensive breakout here at some point. But boy, when you're watching this team on a day-to-day basis, it can be incredibly frustrating, especially the last couple of days, because the Yankee series was a big series. It was a cool little litmus test for this team, and they failed there. And now they're continuing this road trip, and it's somewhat gone from bad to worse for this team. Paul says the pitching is still outstanding, but they're not going to win if they don't get no runs. Let's talk about the pitching real quick. Clay Holmes, if you look at the stat line, a stat line good enough to win a baseball game. 6 innings, the 2 runs allowed, only 4 hits, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts. The 2 home runs are obviously a concern. After going most of his first couple of starts of the year without allowing a home run, he has given up a lot here in the last couple of starts. I believe it is 5 home runs over his last 3 starts. So after no home runs in his first 7 starts, it is 5 home runs over his last 3 starts. Now, again, Clay Holmes isn't a problem. That home run number does pop, especially with how good this staff has been at limiting the home run this season. It is the reversion to the mean, and it has directly timed up with David Stearns' comments about this exact thing happening. It's somewhat comical, even though it's frustrating to watch. The 2 home runs tonight. But again, if take out what we've watched from this team lately, if I would have told you 3 weeks ago or a month ago, Clay Holmes is going to go out there and he's going to give you 6 innings, he's going to give you 2 runs, are you going to have a chance to win the baseball game? You would have all signed up for Clay Holmes to throw that start, and you would have said, yes, the Mets have a chance to win that game. This is not on the pitching. The bullpen was great once again tonight, throwing up zeros, constantly giving this offense a chance. as Eric points out, a little cross-sport analogy, it's like asking a football defense to allow 0 points so you win with 2 field goals. I mean, not to go to another New York team that, isn't great at times. This was the New York Jets under Zach Wilson, where you're just asking your defense to pitch a perfect game. That's what you're asking this pitching staff to do right now. And so it is just, it's just tough, and it is a struggle all across the board. Again, the pitching isn't a concern. I just want to make note that over the last 3 starts for Clay Holmes, the home run numbers have popped, but I believe there are easy excuses for these home runs. Green Monster, would those balls get out in some other ballparks? The rain-aided home runs the other day against Pittsburgh. He gave up 2 home runs in that game as well. That's 4 of the 5 home runs. So easy to write a couple of those off, but is something to file away and monitor. Well, next up for the New York Mets is to try to avoid a sweep, and they're passing the baton to a guy. And for all the hitting problems, there's been a pitching problem with one guy in particular. It's Tylor Megill. The calendar is flipped to May, and he has somewhat turned into a pumpkin. Those May scaries have come back out for Tylor Megill as he is pitching more towards his career numbers in the month of May, and they are not very good. So the Mets will hope that they can get him back on track, that he can give them a solid outing, because if he allows the Red Sox to get out in front here and the Mets are behind the 8 ball once again, do you have the confidence right now in this team to battle back if they're down 2-3, 4-0? Just doesn't feel everything, as I say there on the sidebar, everything looks hard for this team right now. Everything seems difficult. And all of the numbers just point to a team that feels like they're pressing a little bit. Thomas mentions, Chris, they're swinging at the wrong pitches. They're swinging at pitches on the edges of the zone, up and in the corners. They need to let the pitchers pitch to them. It's a fair point, and I'll tell you what. What's interesting to me is Pete Alonso at the start of the season was doing a great job of laying off all that outside stuff and only focusing on the stuff that was in the zone. He feels like he's out of sorts. And that, to me, is a sign of a team that is pressing, that a team that feels like they are out of sorts. And I see a couple of people asking, what would you change to the lineup if you had to? A bunch of people asking that. It's tough because Lindor, we've seen what he's able to do in that leadoff spot. He has 4 leadoff home runs this year. You don't want to change that. Do you maybe move Alonso down in the order? Do you move Soto down in the order? Who are your candidates to go into that 2 spot? The guy that's hitting the best right now out of this mess of an offense is Jeff McNeil. If you wanted to give McNeil a shot in the 2 hole, move Soto down to the 3 spot, Alonso to the 4, just shift guys down a little bit, move McNeil up. You can give that a shot. But, some other candidates that you would consider, Mark Vientos, who hit in the 2 spot in the postseason, was really good. Is he hitting well enough that you want to give that a shot? Go Lindor, Vientos, Soto, Alonso? I don't know. That's an option. Do you move Nimmo up in the order? Again, it's not like you have one guy in this offense that's hitting way better than everybody else, and you can just identify that's the guy to move up. And I do worry a little bit of now over-tinkering. This team is struggling offensively. I worry about making it worse. Yes, it can get worse by tinkering. So perhaps you give McNeil a chance at second base, or at the 2 spot, I should say. Maybe you get Luis Torrens in there. You get Acuna's bat back in the lineup. He's been out the last couple of days. So maybe you try to get some other fresh bats. Maybe, listen, you haven't given a lot of guys days off. Maybe you rotate through and you give some guys days off here, some mental days to just kind of reset a little bit. They definitely did that at third base with Vientos struggling defensively. They put Beatty in there, and he's been the everyday third baseman for the last couple of days out there defensively. So there are these little things that you can do. Torrens being in there might help. Getting Acuna's bat in there might help. But that's really it. They don't have, does anybody feel super confident about putting Marte in this lineup? You want to talk about somebody who takes some really bad at bats. Marte is the king of taking bad at bats. So it's a delicate balance right now. At the end of the day, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso have to hit to the back of their baseball card. It's that simple. No matter where they are in the lineup, no matter if they're hitting first, third, fourth, fifth, ninth, those guys have to get going. Once that happens, I think we're going to have more of these postcasts where we're talking about a team that's scoring a lot of runs and feeling pretty good about themselves. I think we're going to set a record for the longest postcast that we've done this season, and I'm not surprised it's on a game like today where there's a lot of questions of where we go from here. The best part is get some of those answers tomorrow. It's Tylor Megill on the mound for the New York Mets as they will try to avoid getting swept by the Boston Red Sox. They will try to avoid a 4-game losing streak, and they will try desperately to get their offense going because they need it. They are getting the quality pitching. They are just not supporting that quality pitching with anything offensively. It was a 0 spot tonight, an 0-for with runners in scoring position, more guys left on base, and it has become a massive, massive problem for this team right now to swing the bat. Appreciate all of you being here. If you are new, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that you're notified when we go live here. The moment the game is over, we are here on the Mets Postcast breaking all of this down for you. We will be back here tomorrow to break down a sweep, or if the Mets bats can finally show some signs of life and get things going in the right direction. We'll be right here to break it all down. Have a good one, everybody.